An ode to the cemeteries of Puerto Rico. I walk across Puerto Rico not because the island invites walking. The roads stretch between towns, and the sun presses down on you, and your body eventually agrees that speed is unnecessary. And walking becomes less about arriving somewhere and more about just paying attention. I move from town to town as a visitor. I do not belong here in the way that the residents do, and I am careful with that knowledge. I am not here to claim or collect, only to simply pass through. And in nearly every town, at its edge or along a main road, or even overlooking the sea, there is a cemetery. These cemeteries have become my markers, my pauses, and my unintended teachers. In Puerto Rico, the cemeteries do not hide. They are not tucked away behind forests or buffered by distance from daily life. They sit openly in the sun, often in plain view of traffic, homes, and businesses. Some perch above the ocean like white terraces. Others rest beside highways or at the end of narrow streets. Their visibility feels intentional, as if the island has decided that death should not be separate from living. When I enter a cemetery, I do so slowly, not out of fear, but respect. The quiet inside is never complete silence. Birds move through the palm trees, the wind brushes across marble, and the sounds of town life, the cars, the voices, the dogs, continue without interruption. The dead here are not isolated from the living world. They remain part of it. The names are everywhere. Spanish names, African influence names, names shaped by centuries of migration, colonization, resistance, and survival. Some are deeply carved, sharp and confident. Others are worn nearly smooth, softened by rain, salt air, and time. The stone tells its own story, not just of who is buried there, but of how long the island has been holding them. Dates repeat themselves in patterns that feel heavier than coincidence. Certain years appear again and again, hinting at epidemics, storms, and hard seasons that claimed many lives at once. History reveals itself more honestly here than in textbooks. The cemeteries show what events truly cost, not in numbers, but in families. The smallest graves are the hardest to pass. Children's plots marked by plastic angels that fade to chalky white. Stuffed animals sealed in cracked boxes, their expressions permanently cheerful and painfully out of place. These graves do not ask for interpretation. They simply state a fact. Someone loved this child, and someone still does. The flowers are everywhere, both real and artificial. The real ones bow quickly under the sun, while the artificial ones fade slowly, their colors bleached out but their purpose still intact. Neither pretend to be permanent, but both serve as acts of witness. They stand guard until they cannot anymore. In the coastal cemeteries on the island, the ocean is always present. You hear it breathing beyond the walls, steady and unconcerned. The salt settles onto the marble and metal, leaving its mark on everything. The sea does not erase, it claims. It presses itself gently and persistently into stone, almost as if insisting on being remembered alongside the dead. Some graves tilt over time, while others lean toward one another, their alignment softened by years of weather and shifting ground. They look almost conversational, like old neighbors resting together. And it's in these moments the cemetery feels less like a place of endings and more like a long-term gathering. Sometimes photographs are embedded in the headstones, and they are especially striking. The faces stare back with unsettling clarity. A young man in uniform, a woman with styled hair, and a composed smile. Their expressions resist distance. They collapse time. I always acknowledge them with a nod and a small gesture of respect, as I am a guest in their presence. Walking through these cemeteries feels closer to moving through a museum than a burial ground, except nothing is protected or preserved. There is no glass, no climate control, and no attempt to freeze time. Everything is exposed to the elements, and therefore honest. Wealth and status may shape a grave at first, but time equalizes all of it. Between towns, the walking itself becomes part of my reflection. My legs ache, my thoughts loosen, and memory turns to rhythm. Walking strips away from distraction. It makes room for questions that do not demand immediate answers. Sometimes I think about my own name and how it might look carved or painted. What years would frame it? Who might stand where I am standing now, reading me the way I read these names? Guessing at who I was based on the few facts left behind. Would they know that I walked? That I tried to pay attention? That I moved slowly on purpose? The cemeteries never answer. They simply hold space for the question. In the mountains, the tone changes. The air cools. Mist moves between the graves. The dead appear and disappear with the clouds. The soil is red and rich, and roots push gently but persistently against the stones. Nature is not violent here. It is patient, and it reclaims without anger. Sometimes I sit on a low wall or on the ground in the shade. I drink water and let sweat fall freely. There is no need for embarrassment here. The dead have witnessed far more vulnerable moments than this. Occasionally I speak out loud. Not prayers or apologies, just ordinary observations. It is hot today. The road was long. The flowers are still holding on. Including the dead in the ordinary feels appropriate. When I leave a cemetery, I never feel followed. Instead, I feel briefly accompanied, as if something walks beside me for a short distance before getting stepped away when the next town comes into view. This pattern repeats itself across the island. Town, road, cemetery, memory, continuation. It's a quiet and slow education. Yes, I am a wanderer, but I'm not lost. A traveler without conquest, a visitor who understands the difference between passing through and paying attention. Puerto Rico holds its dead in the open, and by doing so, it teaches the living not to look away. I walk, I witness, I move on. And when my walking is done, I hope someone enters the gate slowly, reads my name, nods once, and continues down the road, carrying nothing but the understanding that we all are only here for a while.